Hey, it's Oshin. Not so much crawling out of my dark hole to make something, but more dragging you into the hole with me. I just finished watching Oddity, and I really, really wanted to talk about it. Straight up, straight away, I want to just say, highly, highly recommend this film. You should check it out if you love horror, if you love gothic feeling stories, if you like haunted stories, haunted house stories, then just go watch it. There's very few complaints. I think I have two issues with the film that I'll talk about at the end when I'm touching on spoilers. But apart from two incredibly minor issues, I have no issues with the film. It's fucking brilliant. Go check it out. Those are spoiler free thoughts. I'm going to slowly go into more detail and we'll peel back more layers of spoilers as we go, and I'll warn you as that happens. Um, there's two primary things I wanted to talk about when discussing the film. One, I just want to talk about in general review, which I'll do now. Um, it's a haunted house story, but any haunted house story is incomplete without a more human element. I mean, that's stories need a human element generally for there to be a story there at all. When I think of of an idea for a story, I will so oftentimes I'll have an idea for wouldn't it be cool if, or in a world where X is the case, generally like speculative fiction stuff. I'll think of what kind of characters fit within this world and story, and what kind of conflicts these characters can have with each other or with their environment around them. And I wasn't exactly sure what, as this film began, it starts off very vague in the best way possible, and I didn't know exactly what kind of story I was going to be getting 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, and then when the title card drops in a brilliant way at a brilliant time, I really liked that. I was still uncertain what kind of film we were going to get. I had an idea who the bad guy might be. I had an idea what the primary antagonist or antagonistic force could be, the central mystery. But those assumptions were wrong in the best way possible. And as it went on, by the 20-minute, maybe 25, 30-minute mark, then I had more of an idea of what to expect going forward in the film. But it jumped in time in interesting ways that I guess constitutes flashbacks, but they felt less like flashbacks and what a flashback should feel like, more like very, very smartly well placed scene that had been cut away from, and then you get the rest of that scene playing out, and that was just before the title card dropped. There was an action taken by a character, and you weren't sure exactly what this action was, and it returns to that, and it leaves you with that mystery, and it simmers there, and you're kind of that's that uncertainty that I was on about. That uncertainty lingers until we return to that moment later in the film, and the action is followed through on, and we understand um, what action was taken, and then that sequence when we go back to that scene from the beginning of the film and get the rest of it to play out. It is a scene you've seen many, many times before. I won't spoil exactly what it is, but it's a scene you're familiar with. But it's framed in in a particular way that makes you expect certain elements to be at play, but then it pulls the rug out from under you, and it doesn't linger on it is a relatively violent film, not super gory, but there is definitely violence, and in this scene in particular, there is extreme violence hinted at, but not shown. And it is that thing where the lack of showing us this, there's a really good hard cut. It was the moment in the film where I leaned in and was like, excuse me, where I leaned in and was like, oh, this is artsy. I like this. This is good. And I really, really like that one hard cut. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm on about. Um, but from that moment on, I, and I'm sure most viewers, have or I had, and I'm sure most viewers will have, a better idea of where the story's going and the elements that are going to be interacting with each other. And the acting across the board is really good. There is a small cast with one actor. She plays two characters, both fantastically, and all of the pieces at play are all very satisfying. The 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 characters' interpersonal relationships have surprising elements that I really enjoyed. The unraveling of that, the pulling back of each of these layers of reveals, um, and yeah, I the sound, it didn't stand out. The soundtrack, I should say, it didn't jump out to me as being something that I'd go listen to myself, but it set the mood perfectly. It was just as understated as it needed to be, but did have a little bit of a presence. There was some, the Foley work across the board, I really liked. There's some bed creaking that felt very, very good. Maybe it was actually just recorded, that the actions taken by the characters did result in this creaking that was picked up by the mic. But if it was Foley work, it was very, very, very good. It all sounded very present, very uh, tactile and there. A lot of the time, especially for a horror film, bad Foley work can just ruin the atmosphere, and none of that happened here. It was all very good. There was a few like like generic horror movie sounds. Like I'd need to rewatch it again, but maybe where there was child laughing or something, but or high pitched wind. Or, there was just some sounds in there that felt a little bit. Oh, we're watching a horror movie. We need to have this kind of sound in there. And I think maybe the atmosphere might have been served with maybe a bit more elaborate, or uh, maybe no sound in those places at all. But honestly, they worked fine in the moment, and it's only on reflection I'm thinking about these things, that might serve to be a different way. But as it stands, everything that was there was fucking great, and I loved it. I won't touch on my two issues yet because they involve spoilers. I'll get to my other point first. There is this aspect of watching media that might be a uniquely Irish or European or non-American in general feeling that maybe from the like the Anglosphere, the English-speaking world, where English is people's first language. Um, the Irish film scene is pretty big, but there isn't like, just because of the size of the country and the population and the amount of artists we have, there is not the sheer amount of horror films, for instance, that take place and are set in Ireland by Irish creatives, as there are American or even English or Australian. I've seen, though I've not seen a huge amount of Australian films, but there is like the I can't remember the one, but you know the one, the name of it, but the one with the hand, the hand thing that people touched, and it was like a metaphor for drug usage, or something. That was a really good Australian horror film. But most horror films these days, and I think I'm going to watch Longlegs tonight because I'm in a bit of a horror movie mood now. You watch them and they're American, and they're set in America with Americana, American culture, just all these American signifiers. And that doesn't take me out of a film because me and everyone else on the fucking planet grew up watching American media, or Canadian. But that's more of a blurry line for someone like myself, and I know they're very distinct. I know that, but like as a fucking 6, 7, 8 year old watching films, it's hard to for someone like myself at that age to be able to parse a Canadian from an American movie. And most movies, American movies, Vancouver is a stand-in for like New York and stuff because of it's cheaper to shoot there and stuff like that. So there is that more of a cultural connection between those two countries than there would be Ireland and America. Um, so for an Irish movie to evoke the feelings this film did in me, to just it's that relatability. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure Americans can relate if there was a movie set in your state or even in your hometown. I actually remember watching the movie Shrooms growing up. Not a very good film, but it was shot. I lived at the time. I lived in Monaghan, and it was shot like 30 minutes, 20 minutes down the road from me in a forest that like I had driven by before. So and I'm pretty sure that's an American movie, and it stars an American group of tourists in Ireland. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while, but that was really cool to me. I was like, "Oh, this was shot near me. That's fucking cool." And I enjoyed the movie for that reason alone because I was very easy to please as a child. But that aspect, like just to hear familiar accents and scenery and stuff, that all feels very Irish. And maybe it was shot in England, but that same cultural connection, a blurry line between America and Canada, is also there between Ireland and Scotland and England and Wales. There's that blurry line between us and them as well for, a lot of reasons, and not just for the look of the countryside and architecture and stuff like that. But it was really cool to see a film of this quality coming from Ireland, and a horror film at that. I've seen some horror films that I don't want to name because I respect creatives, and there's no reason to just start shitting on a film that I'm not talking about right now. But I have seen some Irish films, horror films that came out in the last few years that, while I enjoyed and were good, didn't come close to the quality of Oddity. And just the gestalt of it all, the whole package was just so wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to just be so immersed in a film that there was these relatable aspects too. That was a fun part of this that I wanted to discuss. Now I'm going to talk about the two issues I had, and one is bigger than the other, and one I can say without spoiling much. So I'll let you know before there's a big spoiler that is soon coming. But the one issue I wasn't that I can say was there's this one shot of a doorway where a dark doorway, pitch black, you can't see beyond it in like a supernatural way. It shouldn't be as dark as it is. But this dark doorway, a face emerges from it, and it very much looked superimposed. It looked just like it was composited in there, and then it was faded in and, zoomed in a slightly bit to imply that this person's moving forward outside the door. That took me out of it in the moment. That made me go, ooh, that didn't look great. And there's no other moments in the film where I thought that didn't look great. That's the one moment where I was like, we could have done either without that shot, or another pass could have been made on that in the editing room. But that is such a small issue in such a brilliant film that it doesn't really affect the experience that much, but it's something I did think about in the moment, so I did want to bring it up. The other issue is larger, and it includes heavy spoilers. So if you've not seen Oddity, and if any of the things I talked about interest you and you want to go check it out, stop watching right now, because I'm about to spoil something that happens in the last 10-15 minutes of the movie when all of the stuff has been revealed and we're at the the denouement and shit's going down. So stop watching now if you want to go, if you want to see the film, which you should. If you have not watched the film, stop watching and go watch it, and don't even bother coming back, because you've experienced this great piece of art, and that's what's more important than watching this stupid video. So yeah, stop watching. I'm going to spoil it now. At the end of the film, we get the reveal that the primary protagonist, I would say, who works as also the antagonist in a way, to who we initially thought was the protagonist. So there's this flipping going on in protagonist versus antagonist that I really enjoyed. I liked the constant reshifting of perspectives that we got. That was really, really good. I like that a lot. So when I say that she's the protagonist, she's also the antagonist. It's interesting in that way. But if you're watching this, you've seen the film and you know what I'm on about. So I don't really need to go into too much detail about that. But I wish I mentioned that in the pre-spoiler section, but that is a little bit spoilery. So yeah, no, maybe I should have mentioned that. But anyway, there's a moment when Danny, I believe, or Darcy, I think it's Darcy, but she falls and she's bleeding out on the through the crack in the floor that the doctor tricks her into walking in, and she's there bleeding out on the floor, and she does that thing with her fingers, which I had noticed the holes before the moment when the person started pulling out the things from the holes in the wooden sculpture's head. I had noticed the holes in the head, and I actually started thinking about a story idea purely from those holes in the head. I was like, ooh, that's an interesting, because it made me think of a bowling ball. So when at the end of the film, she's lying down, Darcy, I think, is lying down bleeding out, and she does that thing with her fingers. Immediately, I'm like, good job, movie. You made me think about a bowling ball, and then, or someone putting their fingers into these holes in this head. And now you're showing something implying that like she is putting her hands into something that isn't in there in front of her. But we can make that connection because we've seen the holes in the back of the head. So much attention has been drawn to them. And now she's doing this motion. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who, when they saw the holes in the head, they would think, oh, imagine putting your fingers in that like a bowling ball. That's the first thing I thought of. So her doing that motion, immediately you make that connection. So I was like, good job, movie. Brilliant. I love this. This is great. And then she says, we are connected. And I was like, oh, God damn it, movie. You're doing so well. That was not needed. It felt like someone, either the writer, Damien McCarthy, I think, I don't know if he wrote and directed it, but he directed it. It felt like either Damien or maybe someone who was reading it and just giving the script some edits or some recommendations. It felt like someone got to this scene and was like, this is a bit unclear. Maybe a line can be put in there to show that that's what's happening, is she is controlling this thing. That felt unnecessary, and it kind of a little bit took the steam out of the wind out of the sails of the moment. I think the film would have been better without that, if we just had silence. I think most people could make the connection, and if people couldn't make the connection, it would make rewatches more rewarding. So I think that was my biggest issue with the film. That one line, if that one line wasn't there, this would have been almost perfect. Of course, nothing's perfect, but that notwithstanding, I fucking loved this film. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Let me know what your thoughts were. How was this for an American viewer or someone who is not familiar with watching Irish films in general? Did that aspect stand out at all to you, or were you just like, it's just another movie? Or were you like, oh, this is a movie set somewhere apart from myself. This is interesting. I'm interested to hear about that experience. But I think that's all I had to say. I love this movie. I can't wait for more by Damien McCarthy. It's going to be fun to see what he comes out with next. Congratulations, all of the creative team. You all did a fucking brilliant job with this, and you should be proud of the art you made. That's all I have. I'm going to go back to editing a book and try, or maybe I'll watch Longlegs. I'll decide now in a minute. Anyway, thanks for watching. Goodbye. I'm going to now awkwardly go over here and hit stop recording and upload this raw.